This man was plunged into shark-infested waters wearing nothing but a harness belt. Former Navy diver Paul de Gelder and cinematographer Andy Casagrande made a decision. Paul would be strapped to a harness and dunked into the ocean above the shark. To say that things were dangerous would be the understatement of the century. The cinematographer even stated that this has never been tried on camera, which means we're witnessing history. They carefully strapped on the harness, they locked everything tightly in, and a crane with a line lifted Paul up in the air. The GoPro strapped to his chest and the one on his arm were to capture a close-up video of the shark. Just before diving, you can hear Paul saying, "This is scary without even any sharks around." And then it happened. Just as the first great white approached the boat, they dunked Paul into the water on top of the great white. It's a quick half-second video, but that's more than enough time for a fatal bite mark. He got on board the boat and tucked in his legs while his heart was racing with adrenaline. Next up, we have the canoe attack. This is what happens when you row to the middle of the ocean in a canoe and try to catch a tiger shark. Normally, people would do this with professional equipment in a much larger boat, but we suppose this guy felt a little lucky that day. The video was filmed off Key West in Florida. The two canoes are standing side by side and one of them is standing upright trying to reel in the prized catch, a giant tiger shark. But it seems like the shark was fishing too. It was fishing for human meat. That's why as soon as the tiger shark got near the surface of the water, it swam to the canoes and slammed its head directly into the canoes. All of the men were shaken to their core. Some of them started screaming, and one guy almost fell in the water. Had the shark been a little closer, this would have been a completely different story. Luckily, the shark swam away before anything serious happened. One shark on the U.S. East Coast stalked a boat. A group of guys took their boat for a ride about 25 miles southeast of Wrightsville Beach in North Carolina. However, their little trip proved more perilous than they had expected. While they were seemingly in the middle of nowhere, a great white shark, roughly 18 feet in length, started smashing that like button, just like you should if you haven't done so already. But no, in all seriousness, the great white started circling this 21-foot-long boat. For 20 minutes, this giant great white circled the boat. The guys inside the boat were terrified because they knew just one hit from this great white would be more than enough to capsize the boat. Aside from the marvelous close-ups, the shark only brushed its tail along the side of the boat before leaving. And now comes the big bite. Have you ever gotten more than you hoped for out of a trip? Well, this family from Perth in Australia received just that, and they didn't like it. They had sailed and fished before, and they knew that there were sharks in the water. However, what they didn't know was that their biggest catch would be on camera. Just as this family of three, mother, father, and teenage son, were fishing in the middle of the ocean, a great white appeared from the depths. And it wouldn't have been too scary had the shark been circling the boat, but this one wanted something more. It wanted blood. But the only thing it could sink its teeth into, no pun intended, was the boat's engine. As a reporter from 9 News Australia was interviewing the family, they showed where the shark left its bite marks. Both the metal and the plastic of the motor were damaged, but luckily none of the family members were physically hurt. Dickie Shivel is a diver and daredevil who managed to pat a great white shark, and what scared us was when the filmmaker Jeff Kerr told him, and we quote, "I think you're going to be shielded by this," as he pointed to the plexiglass cage.
Given off by my body?
Right, I think you're going to be shielded by this.
Notice how he said, "I think"? Uncertainty of protection is not what you want to hear when you're getting inside a see-through box and 5 sharks are circling around you. Oh, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that as soon as he entered the cage in the water, he realized the door lock was broken. So while the sharks were trying to get to him with their giant toothy jaws, he just held the door closed with his arms and prayed to the dear Lord for help. Eventually, one of the sharks was getting too nosy, so Dickie shoved the shark out of the way with his hand. Now that's what we call bravery. And then we have the diving into the sea of death. Terry Tufferson's shark video has garnered about 40 million views on YouTube, and that's because he took a deep dive into the sea of death. Terry just wanted to cool off and jump in the water near Sydney Harbor. He went behind the fence and jumped directly into the sea below, which is mistake number 1. That fence is there for a reason, as Terry found out. As he dove into the water and his eyes cleared, he saw a giant great white shark coming straight toward him. The man panicked and started screaming. He knew he couldn't outswim it, so he tried to get this killing machine away from him. Luckily, all his waving, flapping, and screaming worked, and the shark swam away. Terry then quickly got out of the water, hopefully having learned his lesson. Next comes Deep Blue. The name of the shark is Deep Blue. The divers you see here are swimming with her. And while swimming with other types of sharks is harmless, for example, swimming with Caribbean reef sharks, which are only 6 or 7 feet long, swimming next to a great white can mean death. The video you're seeing right now was shot off the coast of Oahu, and these 3 divers weren't caught off guard by the shark. They went into the water as soon as they heard Deep Blue was in the vicinity. And while the video might seem very sweet, we would never advise anyone to do this. After all, this is a 20-foot shark that weighs around 4,400 pounds. They'd caught Deep Blue before and tagged her. She's believed to be around 50 years old and was seen for the first time in Mexico. However, the simplest way to recognize this giant shark is by the marks on her body and the giant scar on the right side of the shark's body. So far, she's been featured on the Discovery Channel and on Good Morning America. She's somewhat of a celebrity in scientific circles. Let's not forget about the diver that fought back. Joe Petrovic decided to go for a dive off the coast of Perth, Australia. He and his friends loved spearfishing and they were having fun. At first, he became distracted with the fishing and strayed about 1,000 feet from the boat, which was a costly mistake. He thought he was going after a school of pink snapper, hoping to catch as many of them as possible. However, before he realized it, he faced a 15-foot-long great white shark that weighed approximately 900 pounds. Using the spearfishing equipment, Joe managed to fend off this deadly shark, and he managed to keep it away. He didn't shoot it, as that would have angered it even more. For 9 minutes, Joe was trying to stay alive, while the great white shark was playing a game of cat and mouse. The diver that almost died is the story of a man who wanted to have a close encounter with a great white. To do this, he got inside a glass cage with an open top. Thinking this was a good idea, the man got his diving gear on and laid flat on his belly inside this cage that was floating on the surface of the ocean. At first, the shark was swimming next to him, but that silence was a little too eerie. The smaller fish were beneath the translucent box, and the shark was circling them. All of a sudden, the shark disappeared. The diver looked around and he started panicking. After a moment of silence, the diver tensed up as he saw the great white swimming up from the depths with all the speed it could muster. The jaws opened. The entire cage was shattered in a matter of seconds. The diver fell out of the cage but was unharmed. The cage had been broken, so now he was completely exposed. Mustering his last strength, he managed to swim to the boat and got away from the shark unharmed. And all this was captured on camera. YouTube thinks you should watch this video next.